Alright, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Truce of Hudaibiya and story of Hazrat Abu Jandal and Hazrat Abu Basir radiyallahu anhuma. In the sixth year of Hijrah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam along with his companions left for Mecca to perform Umrah. The Quraysh heard of the news and decided to resist his entry into Mecca even as a pilgrim, and so he had to encamp at Hudaybiyah. The devoted Sahaba, 1400 in number, were however determined to enter even if it involved an open fight. But the Prophet ﷺ viewed the matter differently and, in spite of the Sahaba's eagerness to fight, entered into a treaty with the Quraysh, accepting their conditions in full. This one sided and seemingly ungraceful truce was a very bitter pill for the Sahaba to swallow. But their devotion to the Prophet ﷺ would not allow them to demur. And even the most valiant man like Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu could not but submit to his decision. According to one of the articles of the treaty, converts to Islam during the period of the truce were to be returned, but not so the deserters from Muslims to Quraysh. Hazrat Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu, a Muslim in Mecca, was suffering great persecution at the hands of the Quraysh. They kept him constantly in chains. On hearing about the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ in Hudaybiyah, he escaped somehow and managed to reach the Muslim camp at a time when the truce was about to be signed. His father Suhail, till then a non Muslim, was the envoy of Quraysh in the negotiations for the truce. He smote Hazrat Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu on his face and insisted on taking him back to Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ represented that since the truce had not till then been written, its application in Abu Jandal's case was premature. Suhail, however, would not listen to any argument and was not inclined to leave his son with the Muslims, even at the personal request of the Prophet ﷺ, and would have foregone the truce. Even Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu, counting his hardships, remonstrated at the top of his voice, but much to the grief of the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ agreed to his return. He, however, enjoined patience on him, saying, "Do not be distressed, Hazrat Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu, Allah will shortly open a way for you." After the truce was signed and the Prophet ﷺ had returned to Medina, another Meccan Muslim, Hazrat Abu Basir radiallahu anhu, escaped to Medina and besought the Prophet ﷺ's protection. The Prophet ﷺ refused to accept his implorations and, in deference to the truce condition, handed him over to the two persons who had been deputed by the Quraysh to claim him. He, however, advised him, as he had advised Hazrat Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu, to be patient and hope for the help of Allah. When Sayyidina Abu Basir radiallahu anhu and his escort were on their way back to Mecca, Hazrat Abu Basir radiallahu anhu said to one of them, "Friend, your sword is extremely fine." The man was flattered and took it out from the shed and said, "Yes, it is really very fine, and I have tried it on so many persons. You can have a look at it." Most foolishly, he made over the sword to Abu Basir radiallahu anhu, who immediately tried it on its owner and killed him. The other man took to his heels and reached Medina to report to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the meantime, Abu Basir radiallahu anhu also arrived. He said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "O Prophet of Allah, you once returned me and I absolved yourself of the truce obligations. I had no obligations to fulfill and I managed my escape from them by this trick, as I was afraid of their forcing me to forsake my faith." The Prophet ﷺ remarked, "You are a warmonger. I wish you could be helped." Hazrat Abu Basir radiallahu anhu came to understand from this that he would be returned to Quraysh again when they demanded him. He therefore left Medina and fled to a place in the desert on the seashore. Abu Jandal radiallahu anhu also managed his escape and joined him there. More Muslims of Mecca followed, and in a few days, quite a small group of such fugitives gathered in the wilderness. They had to undergo untold sufferings in the desert, where there was neither habitation nor vegetation. They, however, being bound by no treaty, proved a great nuisance for the Quraysh by dealing blows after blows on their caravans passing that way. This compelled the Quraysh to approach the Prophet ﷺ and beseech him to intervene and call the fugitives to Medina so that they might be bound by the terms of the treaty like other Muslims and the caravans might pass in safety. It is said that Hazrat Abu Basir radiallahu anhu was on his deathbed when the letter sent by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam permitting his return to Medina reached him. He died while holding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's letter in his hand. No power on the earth can make a person forsake his faith, provided it is a true faith. Moreover, Allah has given an assurance to help those who are genuine Muslims.